Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a pretty profound spiritual mystery today. Have you ever wondered why so many people set out on this grand path of spiritual cultivation only to completely fail to reach their destination? I mean, it's a journey defined by high hopes and incredible teachings, and yet the drop-off rate is massive. So, let's dive straight into the source texts and figure out exactly why this spiritual practice so often falls short of the final shore.
Right out of the gate, the text hits us with this incredibly striking proverb. It says, "Cultivators are as many as cow hairs. Those who succeed are as few as cow horns." Think about that for a second. Picture a massive ox covered in literally millions of hairs, right? Those hairs represent everyone who starts a practice, but the horns, there are only two of them. It's a brilliant, if somewhat harsh, reality check. Millions of people try, but true realization is exceptionally rare. So it really begs the question, what exactly are these rare few actually achieving?
Well, before we can diagnose why people are failing, we really need to understand what the ultimate goal even is. The text defines this objective as escaping birth and death. And we're not just talking about finding a little inner peace or feeling more relaxed here. We are talking about completely transcending the endless cycle of reincarnation, what the text refers to as the 4 births and the 6 paths of existence. Basically, that means all forms of life and all realms of suffering. The real objective is to return to the ultimate origin, to that pure state of our original spirit, totally free from worldly attachments.
But here's where the breakdown usually happens. There is a massive, gaping chasm between knowing the teachings and actually doing the work. Just getting spiritual knowledge, or experiencing that initial spark of wisdom or an initiation, it's just not enough to get you to the finish line. You can read all the sacred texts, you can listen to all the enlightened masters, you can know exactly what the path looks like on a map, but if you don't actually put one foot in front of the other, you're going to stay exactly where you started.
The text gives us this wonderful parable to illustrate the struggle. Imagine a powerful city ruler who wants to test his 3 sons to see who's truly worthy of succeeding him. He tells them, "Go climb that great mountain and report back to me." Okay, so the eldest son comes back after just 3 days, raving about the fragrant flowers and the singing birds. The ruler just shakes his head and says, "You only went to the base." Then the second son comes back after a week, talking about these massive tall trees and scurrying squirrels, and the ruler says, "You only made it halfway." But the youngest son, he doesn't return for a whole month. When he does, he's totally exhausted, his clothes are completely torn, but his eyes are bright. He describes the glorious sunrise from the absolute peak, the endless horizon, and the biting, freezing wind. He's the one who actually reached the summit, and he is the one chosen to lead.
So what's the moral of this mountain parable? It's showing us 2 totally distinct paths. Those first 2 sons represent superficial practice. They loved the comfortable, pretty aspects of the mountain, but the second the climb got really tough, they retreated. The youngest son, on the other hand, represents true cultivation. And that requires the sheer stubborn will to endure real hardship and those biting winds, all so you can finally see the vast truth from the summit. It's absolutely not about staying comfortable, it's about deep transformation.
Which brings us to the beautiful, classic metaphor of the lotus. We all know the lotus grows in the absolute muddiest, murkiest water imaginable, right? Yet it blooms completely pristine and pure. But listen, that doesn't just happen by accident. True cultivation requires real, sustained effort to uncover that inner purity. You can't just sit there reciting empty words, crossing your fingers, and expecting the mud to miraculously wash itself away. You have to actively do the hard work to rise above the murky waters of your worldly attachments.
And that leads us to one of my absolute favorite metaphors from the text: cooking sand to make rice. Imagine standing over a stove, spending hours, days, literally years boiling a pot of sand, hoping it's somehow going to turn into a delicious, fluffy bowl of rice. I mean, there's no way, right? It doesn't matter how much effort you put in, the fundamental substance in the pot is just wrong. The text uses this to show that immense effort without the correct method or without true internal transformation is completely useless. You can go through all the external motions of a spiritual practice, but if your inner nature isn't actually changing, you're literally just cooking sand.
Section 1. Balancing Wisdom and Merit.
So how do we stop cooking sand? The text introduces the absolute necessity of duality. We have to perfectly balance our internal insight with our external actions. And to really drive this home, we're given 2 fantastic cautionary tales. First, picture the Arhat. This is a highly enlightened monk who cultivated incredible inner wisdom, but basically never lifted a finger to help anyone else. As a result, he's spiritually enlightened, sure, but he's physically starving in the streets. Now contrast him with the king's elephant.
This represents someone who, in their past lives, only cultivated external merit. Maybe they gave tons of money to charity, but they completely ignored inner wisdom and moral discipline. And the result? They are reborn as an animal. Sure, it's a wealthy, pampered, jewel-covered elephant, but at the end of the day, it's still a beast trapped in ignorance.
Let's break these two concepts down a bit more. First up is wisdom, or panya. The text is very clear that this is not about book smarts. It's an internal realization of the mind. It's knowing your true inner nature and being able to instantly distinguish right from wrong without having to rely on external learning or someone else telling you what to do. But think back to our starving arhat. Wisdom by itself leaves a practitioner totally disconnected from the real world, unable to truly help others or even sustain their own journey in the physical realm.
And then we have the second pillar, merit, obarami. This is the necessary external action. This is the virtue you build by actually getting out there, helping others, making real sacrifices, and creating a tangible, positive impact on the world around you. Think of merit as the fuel that actually sustains your journey. But remember the king's pampered elephant? If you only focus on building that external merit and doing good deeds, but you never develop your inner wisdom, you're going to remain trapped in the cycle of ignorance. You'll entirely miss that ultimate goal of escaping birth and death.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this synthesis. To save oneself, one must save others. This is really the climax of the text's entire narrative on cultivation. True spiritual success isn't some selfish endeavor where you just go sit alone in a cave for 30 years. It demands a perfect, harmonious balance. You have to save yourself through your inner wisdom while at the exact same time actively saving and helping others through outer merit. They constantly feed into each other. You simply cannot reach the peak of that mountain alone.
Section 2. The Blueprint for Success.
Okay, so practically speaking, how do we actually apply this duality day to day? Well, the text gives us a very concrete blueprint. First, you have to maintain the 3 refuges to firmly anchor yourself in spiritual truth. Second, actively practice the 4 don'ts. That means avoiding sights, sounds, speech, or actions that contradict that truth. Third, perform the 3 charities. Give wealth to those who need it, share the Dharma or knowledge, and practice the absolute ultimate charity, which is forgiveness. And finally, consistently keep the 10 good deeds. It's basically a comprehensive checklist for marrying the internal with the external.
This kind of rigorous daily commitment is exactly the dividing line between the cow hairs and the cow horns. The millions of cow hairs represent simply knowing the path. It's passively reading the texts or just reciting mantras without any feeling. But those rare cow horns, they represent walking the path. These are the people actively changing their inner nature and committing to consistent daily action. Your knowing and your doing have to become one single, unified, unstoppable action.
The text leaves us with this brilliantly simple metaphor to really cement the idea. It says, like drinking water, you only know if it's hot or cold by tasting it yourself. You can read all the external explanations or look at complex scientific charts about the temperature of water, but that means absolutely nothing until you actually take a sip. Spiritual truths are exactly the same. They have to be validated through your own direct personal experience and action. Just hearing it from someone else, that's barely even the beginning.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a second and look inward at your own spiritual resolve. Honestly ask yourself, are you just reciting the texts and comfortably enjoying the flowers down at the base of the mountain? Or are you putting in the really hard work, perfectly balancing your wisdom and your merit, and truly walking the path all the way to the summit? Ultimately, the choice to be a cow hair or a cow horn is entirely up to you.